Hello there, my beautiful internet and you fantastic creatures of the beyond. My voice is a bit raspy, but we shall manage. Poor Things. It's an amazingly clever movie. Highly unorthodox, highly taboo. And it is presented in such a light that when you see the trailer for the first time, you think, oh, it's just a comedy. It's just a quirky comedy. We've seen movies with William Defoe before where he's playing all these awkward characters, but whoa, this movie takes it to another level. And in a good way, but also in a very controversial way. And what's clever about this movie is that it, it makes you slip into the movie and not challenge the controversy at face value because it's boiling you like a frog. It's putting you into cold water and slowly raising the temperature until it's too late for you to realize that you're in the water. That's exactly what this movie does. It's fantastic from many points of view. So, as it is described here, it's an incredible tale about the fantastic evolution of Bella Baxter, a young woman brought back to life by a brilliant and unorthodox scientist, Dr. Goodwin Baxter, which is played by William Dafoe. And then Bella Baxter is played by Emma Stone, which delivered one of her best acting characters that she ever performed on a movie, on a screen before. And it's people might think, oh, it's cute, it's an idea that they present to you as the Frankenstein monster creating his own bride or something like that. But no, it's so much further from the truth in this movie. And it's going to contain spoilers, of course, but um, what is unique about this movie is the transformation and the journey of discovery of Bella Baxter. And it goes, well, to put it in perspective, think about it as a piece of art, a painting that you're presented with. You look at it at first glance, it looks full of color, full of life, interesting figures, but as you perceive with into the details and you spend your time analyzing how every figure has a role, has a purpose, what are the interactions between the characters within the frame, you realize that it is a very chaotic thing. You can imagine it sort of like you're seeing heaven around the edges, but inside it's full chaos. And it's complementary in a way. In plain words, this movie can't be put in plain words. But I'll try to visualize it for you. Basically, we are put into this 1960s, maybe 1800s kind of late 1800s kind of a scenario, but with a steampunk twist to it. And the movie isn't afraid to show you that it's not trying to be realistic. It presents you scenes that are very akin to paintings in general, to masterpieces, by the way, such as the Sandcastle at one point. That was very interesting. And a very subtle way of presenting in between the line a very unique message. And it was the turning point. Actually, it was so brilliantly delivered that it distracts you with so many things to not see the message in front of you. That is unique to movies these days because most movies are like, look at me, I'm doing this thing. No, this movie tries so much not to tell you what it's doing, but in a way is presenting you. It's like trying to trick you with the right hand while mugging you with the left hand. It's very fantastic. And Um, when I see the first presentation of the movie, the introduction of the characters, uh, we see a lot of pain, a lot of suffering, but in a way that it isn't transposed as a misfortune, but rather an opportunity. So, in the first scene, what is presented to us as Bella Baxter is a woman who jumps from a bridge to her death. In that moment, the doctor, Goodwin Baxter, who is a disfigured scientist, by the way, because his father was very cruel to him and he experimented with many things, although in the name of science. But he finds the body and saves her. The woman was pregnant, so when she saves her, she removes the baby. The baby survived, the woman did not. So here is the crazy part. The movie doesn't go too much into detail about that. It just leaves a small blanket of curiosity there. Uh, then this doctor takes one of his students to come and analyze Bella Baxter. Emma Baxter. And try to keep her under surveillance, see how her evolution is. And he explains like her body is not yet synchronized with her mind because when he brought her to life, there were some small complications here and there, but it was expected. It was natural when you bring somebody to life, things to go unexpected. And the more he discovers about Bella, he realizes that Bella has forgotten everything, but is starting to learn from scratch slowly. Her speech is starting to develop. Everybody is very acceptant of her and tolerant until this guy, the I forgot his name, but anyway, um, he's actually not a very relevant character, even though he does play an important role in the movie in a way. So the assistant, in a way, falls in love with Emma and so on, but Emma is very one-dimensional at first. And when I started watching this movie, I was like, this doesn't feel right. It just doesn't fit into the character of that we're being presented. Sure, it's a person brought back to life, but for a good portion of the movie, it is very one-dimensional and very objective. And I couldn't get my head around this aspect. I was like, why is it so simplistic when the characters around her are so complex, yet she's transposed as something so unique? And I was try to connect it to the name of the movie, Poor Things. I was like, maybe they're pitying the poor being for trying to understand the world around her when everything is so magnificent and she does not even grasp the reality anymore, or what is reality, or what is she. She's trying to identify what she is first of all. But then the assistant finds something interesting: a brain transplant. And then I started connecting the dots. And then, yeah, sure, the movie kind of rolls in and shows that the doctor removed the brain of the baby and put it in the head of the woman while removing the brain of the deceased. I was like, okay, that is an entirely different layer. I was like, yeah, now it makes sense. It's fantastic. It's crazy, but it makes sense. What are they gonna do with this? And of course, this doctor had tested many experiments before Bella Baxter. He used a lot of head transplants between animals, and it's all those things that you see on YouTube, sorry, on the internet, with the head of a pig on the body of a dog or something like that. And it's funny because it's Photoshop, but here it is presented like, hey, it works. It's a living creature, and somehow it functions. Then we are being moved into the next scene where we are presented with Mark Ruffalo's character. Again, can't remember the names right now. Oh, one little aspect that is very important is that Bella Baxter calls her creator god. And I was looking at that. It's like, that's a little bit egoistical, isn't it? But he didn't deny that he wasn't a god to her. But he tried to keep her safe, to keep her in a secluded environment, and try to slowly integrate her into the world. But she became a little bit erratic, uh, uncontrollable at times. And then the doctor comes with the idea of marrying Bella Baxter with the um, the assistant. And the assistant is quite easy to manipulate, so he says yes. And Bella Baxter doesn't really understand the concept of marriage. It knows it's about union because it is explained to her like that. And she says, yeah, okay, why not? And then she discovers little by little her body functions and how it feels to touch herself. And it's like she discovers this hidden secret, this this unique, magnificent thing that takes her to a whole new level. And she tries to apply this to the maid as well because she likes it. And she says, if I like it, everybody should like it. Everybody should enjoy it. And people are a little bit horrified of how she's reacting. That like, no, you don't do this in civilized society. You have to keep it to yourself. He's like, why? It's the best thing that ever happened to me. And then when Mark Ruffalo, and finally Mark Ruffalo got a freaking good role he can play. He's no longer a wimp like he's in the Avengers and so on. He actually has a lot of fiber to him. And he goes through a lot of transformations as well with Bella Baxter. So he discovers Bella Baxter, they interact, they have intercourse, and Bella Baxter feels like, whoa, I have to learn more about this. So he just she just pops up and says, I want to go with this guy on an experience of discovering the world. I'm like, what? Yeah, right now. She just leaves. And the guy and the doctor and the assistant were just bewildered, but they didn't stop her eventually. So the doctor kind of gave her the money and so on, and to have as a backup and so on. So he was kind of a fatherly figure. And again, I'm not doing the movie justice how I'm explaining it, but because there is so much nuance between the links in between the characters. But what is interesting is the evolution of Bella Baxter, because Bella starts to discover more and more about sex and so on, and then she wants to know more about people. And she's constantly having this eyesight like she's a dead fish in a way. She just looks at the world as a whole, objectively, and she does not focus on anything. She does not put herself first in a way. She just tries to absorb everything around her and know as much as possible. And of course, Mark Ruffalo doesn't know about her operation or anything like that. He's just fascinated with her. He had many women before her, but never something like her. And considering she's a baby, that is very controversial. Moving forward, she then discovers that she interacts with a cynic that sees the world very destructively. And this is the turning point where she starts to change from herself to the world and wants to do more than acknowledge about her existence and her well-being, and tries to exteriorize that into when he is brought by this cynic to this castle, this I don't know, resort, let's call it. She is shown the difference between poverty and the hierarchy of the society where the rich live, and she was on the top. By pure accident, she was an anomaly after all brought there. And she looks down there and she sees all the dead babies that are dying on the sand because of the heat. And it's a very powerful scene. And it impacts her so strongly that that moment her eyes turn so humane, full of tears, and she wants to save those children. So she goes back into the ship because she was traveling on a ship with Mark Ruffalo, and takes all of his money because he was knocked out, and she gives it away to the people that are at the entrance of the ship and says, "Please take this money and give it to the children out there to save them." And the guys are like, "Yeah, sure, why not?" And she was very naive, obviously, but we are presenting all of this um, information through the eyes of a blank slate. We're basically put inside a world full of complicated elements that are never tried to present to us to absorb by the character, but she tries to make sense of it. And she's just this blank canvas, and she tries to put color on this canvas and tries to uh, paint what she sees, but she doesn't not understand what she sees. That's the problem. And she paints as close as she can make sense of what is presented to her. And she develops this naivety that if she can do something in this world to help, she can change the world. And so she applies to become a prostitute. Yeah, I know. Quite an interesting twist of events. And she becomes quite a good prostitute. And she abandons Mark Ruffalo. He becomes desperate after her, to the point where he becomes insane. And it's quite breathtaking in a way because we're thrown into a whole new world where we are shown like, hey, she tries to talk to the brothel owner and explain to her, hey, why can't we just share more of our love instead of just or try to help people in a way that they find what they seek instead of being forced onto them. And it's a lot of logic of back and forth between the characters trying to explain to her, but she's very determined. And that's what I like about her character. She's very snappy, she's impactful, she goes like a bulldozer through everything. And no matter how society tries to normalize some things, she just destroys it as she goes. She's a force of nature. She's so compact and so determined that whoever stands in her way gets crushed. And after a while, she realizes that she wants to go back because the doctor was dying, and she decides to stay. She decides to continue to formally introduce the marriage between her and the assistant. But just before the marriage is finalized, Mark Ruffalo comes with somebody and says, "We object." And they were like, "Why?" And the guy that was with Mark Ruffalo is like, "I am the husband of the wife of the person that of the woman that is trying to marry this guy." And they were like, "But this is Bella Baxter. It's not the same woman that was before." I forgot her name again. So she looks at this guy and says, "Wait, I want to see what he's all about. I want to understand who my mother was." So she goes with him. Him still being under the impression that it's the same woman, obviously, that she was before jumping off the bridge. And she realizes that this woman is a maniac. He's very cruel, he's very horrible. All the worst things in the world were incorporated into this guy. He's a psychopath. And she inquires him to explain who her mother was. And she realizes that her mother was also a psychopath. But she hated the fact that she had the child and saw it as a monster, that she rather took her life of both her and her child than to live like that or to to have a future or give the child a future or anything in that sense. And she is taken by this thing. She realizes that she is not her mother. Because, as I said, it's a journey of discovery. So all of this time she was conflicted who she really is, because she realizes the body is not hers, but the mind is. So in the end, the body does not matter. It's only what is us as a character, as a human, as an entity that makes us us. So they have a little bit of a battle there. He gets to shoot himself in the foot, and she takes her to her fiance, the one she was trying to marry, because he was also a doctor. In the meantime, the original doctor died, the god. um, so she brings him back, this guy that he shot in the foot. So he shot himself in the foot and says, "Okay, we have to save him." And the guy is like, "But if we save him, he's not gonna stop. He's a maniac. He wants to kill us at the end." And she's like, "Yeah, I know. He needs improvement." I was like, Is she going to go for a psychological treatment? No. She just does an operation, removes his brain, and puts the brain of a goat inside. I was like, oh damn. She is indeed a force of nature. Nothing can survive if it stands in front of her. So she's so objective that it presents the world as this mm, construct that tries to tiptoe around issues in the world and tries to delicately change them in a way, but it becomes kind of normalized in other ways. So it mutates the world into being monstrous underneath the surface of this beauty. But she's like putting her hand on the problem and just removing it from the root. And people are, uh, I don't know, they're shocked that she can do that. They're like, you can actually do that? You can solve a problem by actually going to the root of it? And it kind of ends in a positive note because she inherits all the wealth and everything that the doctor left. The Godwin. Actually, now I can see why he was calling her God, because it's Godwin. God plus win. Interesting. Um, so she inherits everything, and in a way, I think she starts her journey into changing the world from there in small steps. And it's interesting when you watch a movie such as this, and it puts your thoughts at work at night for many days in a row. You realize this is a fantastic movie, very controversial, but not presented to you in such a shocking way that you feel repulsed by it. Although the concept of it is very off-putting. If you remove all of the comedy, you're kind of left with this horror show. It's a freak show, but very horrific and very scary. So the director and the writers did an amazing job into taking people through this journey in a interesting and clever way that they can process the movie and the character of Bella Baxter in such a way that they themselves start to see the world in a new light. Of course, obviously, it's not trying to present to you the fact that go around and do brain operations on people to change them. But if you read in between the lines, you understand that the world can be changed. We just have to take a more objective approach to it in certain situations, not all of them, clearly. And only use delicacy, sorry, not delicacy, a delicate touch only in situations that are too complex and too fragile to take the direct approach. yeah, I know I'm kind of rambling here, but the point is, watch the movie. It's mind blowing, mind melting, whatever you want to call it. It's fantastic. Hope you guys enjoyed this little crazy rant of mine about poor things. But yeah, go watch it.